Live from New York, it's the show that I'd like to think is not lacking depth. Alongside Coach Mangini, I'm Danny Parkins. Coach, Brian Hoyer will join us in just a little bit, a tremendous quarterback and backup quarterback in his day. Feeling good? You feeling good about our depth?
I feel strong. Yeah, I think we look good. You've done a nice job putting this together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. So I'm like a player, coach, general manager all in one.
Yeah, you've got all those jobs covered.
I've gotten many reps in Madden in my day. I feel like I'm uniquely qualified for all of the jobs that you actually do.
Based off of a lot of takes, I feel like you do have a lot of reps in Madden.
You check my references, and it's like Madden play caller.
Yeah, that's where they're coming from. Got it.
And we begin. It's going to be a very smooth sailing here. Today's show, Mike Vrabel, he's resting his starters because he is concerned his roster isn't deep enough. I have a theory. He's not telling the truth. We will discuss. Also, the Ravens defense seems to be showing that Jesse Minter was a good hire on just 2 preseason games. Have the Ravens officially put the league on notice? Also, Bucky Brooks seems to agree with Dak Prescott that this Cowboys offense is and can be even better than last year's. Coach, I'm not going to ask you to be a fan of Dallas talking Super Bowl. We know where you stand on that. But do you think the hype is warranted in Dallas?
I think the hype is getting a little bit too strong too early.
Oh my God!
I know you love hype, and you love hype. You could seriously be the poster boy for hype. You and Dak Prescott combined. But
August.
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
August it's hype month.
It's hype month. Okay.
Next week is predictions week, and then we can tamp down the expectations when it's game week.
Okay.
But it's hype month.
Okay.
All right.
You're in.
A little preview of things to come. We begin, though, with breaking news out of Cleveland. This one's not polarizing at all. Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport both reporting today that Deshaun Watson has been named the Browns' starting quarterback over Shedeur Sanders. So, Coach, there's a lot there. There's an old saying in media, don't pick a fight with anyone that buys ink by the barrel, because it's a fight you can't win. The modern-day version of that is don't pick a fight with the fans, because they have the ink that there's 80,000 of them at a game. They all have access to social media. Like, it's just a fight. Generally speaking, you can't win when athletes pick fights with the fans. Your reaction to all of this, and if Deshaun deserves to be the Week 1 starter for the Browns?
I felt that the booing when he got hurt was really unfair. And I understand a fan base's frustration with the way that this has all unfolded in terms of the expectations that he came in with. The commitment that they gave to him organizationally in terms of was it $250 million guaranteed, the only fully guaranteed contract in history, the amount of draft picks they gave up, and then the performance that he was having, as well as all the off-the-field issues and the distractions that went into. That being said, to cheer anybody getting injured, to me, is out of bounds. Says that things like that happen in stadiums? Yeah, there's things like that happen all the time. And when you're in professional sports or in any area where you're public facing, you're going to receive some criticism that just comes with it. And you have to expect that. And unfortunately, you've got to roll with it. In this situation, he was frustrated during the game. He thought he was going to get a different reaction. But there's still a high level of frustration with him. And there's a different level of excitement with Shedeur about the possibilities of what he can be, to where I think a lot of people and a lot of fans in Cleveland just want to move on from Deshaun Watson.
Well, it's not time yet. And this is the cold, hard truth reality, because there are a lot of layers to this story. So I'll address the thing that you said off the bat. I obviously can understand on some sort of human level why suffering a career-altering injury and then being cheered by your home fans would sting a human being and impact a guy's psyche. I can obviously understand that. I remember covering the Chiefs when Matt Castle was struggling and he got hurt, and some people cheered, and Eric Winston came to his defense in like a very passionate public thing, and it went very viral in like the early days of virality. Like, players do not like when their home fans cheer the player. I understand all of that. I still feel like, though, that Deshaun Watson doesn't get it. I don't think he gets it, because he says that that's not performance-based, and it obviously is. Like, if Deshaun Watson, after they gave up 3 first-round picks and $230 million fully guaranteed, which they gave him that trade after over 24 women accused him of sexual assault, harassment, inappropriate conduct during massages. They made that trade after those allegations came out. If he had gone to Cleveland and balled out, we have seen so many instances of so many stories of so many different people who have done things off the field that are immoral, illegal, and any varying degrees within that realm, where the fans cheer for the player because they cheer for the performance. And Deshaun has been awful. It was a franchise crippling transaction. The worst trade, the worst contract in the history of the NFL, and they're still dealing with it. And I feel like people have said that and then still not fully grasped how much it would set them back. Like, I saw people today saying, well, the Browns should just cut Deshaun Watson.
No, you can't.
They can't. They cannot cut him. He has to be on the roster this year for financial reasons, or it would be even more crippling into the future. If they cut him after this year and make it a post-June 1 designation, it still will be $86 million of dead cap money spread out over the next 2 years. When we say it is the worst transaction in NFL history, it is backed up by the draft picks, the money, the PR, and the immovability of the contract, and how poorly he's played.
You're forgetting one element, Baker Mayfield. How well he's doing in Tampa Bay.
Right, and so that's exactly right. And they're going to play Baker Mayfield in week 2. And so, let's just throw up the football numbers. For Deshaun to say this is not performance-based, that is what Cleveland has gotten as a return on their investment. Those numbers are across the board atrocious. So, yes, he received some boos early. I'm not saying that it wasn't throughout that entire performance. But if he would have gone 10 of 12 for 136 yards with a touchdown instead of 5 of 12 for 36 yards and no touchdown, there also would have been cheers. So for him to remove the performance aspect of this is just to deny reality.
Yeah, I imagine he keeps going back to the injury moment.
Of course, because it's the first time he was on the field since then, and he wants to be cheered for the return to injury as the conquering hero, but he's not a sympathetic figure. He's not. He is not the victim here.
He's not sympathetic at all, and it is performance-based, to your point, as if he had gotten hurt after having Houston-type numbers and playing like he had done there, it would be a totally different thing. And you're right, too. Guys have done a lot of things off the field that have been overlooked if they're performing on the field, which he hasn't. It's not only been bad, it's been terrible. And the boos are just part of what you deal with when the performance is not very good.
And the other thing, this is not a good sign for Shedeur Sanders, because the Browns traded for Deshaun Watson knowing the PR hit they were going to take, because they thought they were getting a top 5 young quarterback in football. That's why they did it. They're like, okay, there's all of this horrible stuff out there, but we have had no good quarterbacks in the history of our franchise, so we are going to take that hit to go out and get one. And right now, Deshaun did not look good. Shedeur has not looked good. There have been varying reports about who's been better at various times in practices, all those sort of things. Neither option is the quarterback of the future for the Browns, but Todd Monken wants to win week 1. And he is saying, we're going to put him out there. And I thought that Deshaun today, when he walked back his comments, struck the right tone. And he also said, we've got 2 weeks, we start on the road before we come home to hopefully change how the reception would be going forward. It would not surprise me at all if Deshaun plays poorly against Jacksonville and poorly against Cleveland against Tampa, and the Browns are 0-2 for that home opener, that Shedeur Sanders starts the home opener.
Yeah, they're both going to play during the course of the season.
No question.
But what is benefiting Deshaun Watson right now is what's happened in recent NFL history with Sam Darnold, with Baker Mayfield, with Geno Smith, with all of these guys who have had second acts. So now the league is looking at this and saying, guys can who have been good in the past or have shown tremendous potential can do that again. Whether it's a change of scenery, whether it's a change of head coach. And as they made this decision, if you pull this up, Deshaun had one small run where he was 5-1 as a starter before he got hurt. And I thought the numbers were going to be even more skewed towards him, but the 61.4 completion percent, it's not as skewed as much.
A lot of those games he was carried by a pretty damn good Browns defense.
And I'm not saying that's not the case, but it's the idea, and it's a copycat league, and you look at past trends and you say, okay, this is what's happened, and these are real life examples, and we've seen significant amount of success with guys getting second chances who have a history of production. So whether it's ownership or whether it's the front office or where it's coming from, they're hoping that that's what's going to happen here. And if it doesn't happen, at least it puts you've got a final sort of body of work to close this chapter indefinitely.
And Albert Breer said it on Colin earlier today. He's exactly right. I do think it is easier to go from Deshaun to Shedeur than Shedeur to Deshaun. Just because of the money invested in Deshaun, the age of Deshaun Watson, the fifth-round pick. You could say, all right, Shedeur will wait. He'll develop. He maybe will be our QB2 of the future. I think that Shedeur has a real chance to be on the Browns next year. I think it's almost zero. I think it's 0% that Deshaun Watson is on the Browns next season.
Yeah, ideally he would play well, and you could have him in the building in some context, because you talked about it. It's about $30 million next year in dead money and $50 million the following year in dead money. So if you could figure out a way to push that off again, it's better for business. It just doesn't look like it's going to happen that way. But we're going to get to find out really early in the season what we're looking at.
Feels like we have a 2-week sample to me of Deshaun Watson before the next real decision has to come in. All right, let's go to New England. Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel has chosen to sit Drake May and other key starters during the Patriots' first 2 games of the preseason. Vrabel was asked about the importance and what went into that decision. Here's his response.
I don't think we have a very deep team, Mike, so I think we have to make sure that we're preparing our football team and that we're doing everything that we can to keep our best players available. And if that means playing Thursday as part of preparation, then that's what we'll do. Have not made that decision yet, but I would say that that's something that I'm confident in with where we're set up currently.
It's a great quote. I don't think we have a very deep team. What's your reaction to him being that forthcoming?
Well, he talked about it today, too.
On the radio.
And he explained what he meant by that, and there's a lot of truth to this. We've changed the preseason, so now we're at 3 games instead of 4, and you've got to be able to evaluate the group of young guys that are there, and so you have a smaller window to do that. Usually the 4th game is where you're able to see all those guys, and if you don't feel like you know who the 3rd outside linebacker is going to be, who the 5th offensive lineman is going to be, who the core special teams guys are going to be, and you've got this group of candidates, the best way to determine how those guys are going to distinguish themselves is by playing them. So that's part of it. Now the other part is that if you don't feel like that next guy in is a comparable upgrade, then you better do everything you can to protect the guys that you have. And the worst thing that can happen is to lose guys in preseason. We see it with the Chargers. They lost a starter. We've seen it with the Commanders. They lost the Tunsil. So it's a mix where you want to see the guys that are candidates to make the squad, and you also want to protect the guys that you have, so you have the best opportunity to play them in meaningful games.
So I always come out on the side of rest the guys who matter, because I just believe that I'd rather deal with a little bit of week 1 rust among my best players than have fresh guys for week 1 but they're backups because my starters got hurt in meaningless games. That's where the Sean McVay school basically of thought. He does not play his guys in the preseason. It seems to work out pretty well for him, but great coaches have gone the other way. Andy Reid normally gives guys a tune-up. So I'm not saying that this is confirmed science. You can debate things on either side. I just thought that Mike Vrabel, and I listened to a couple of the clips from the Greg Hill morning show in Boston that he went on, because I guess people in Boston were taking it as was this a shot at Elliott Wolf, the general manager, for not giving him enough? And I didn't take it that way at all. He was saying, we need to figure out who our sixth tackle is and who our third linebacker is. And we know who our starters are, but it's more important for us to identify who our backups are going to be, which is totally fair. But the Patriots are a deep football team. They are. Like they just went through an entire draft, and none of the players that they drafted are, as of today, projected to be starters. Like Caleb Lomu,
that could be really good or really bad. That either means that your starters are really talented, or that means that the guys you drafted aren't as good as you hoped they'd be.
Sure,
but that's a very optimistic way to look at it.
But most teams, most years, good teams and bad, have to start at least one or two rookies who they draft. There's just so much turnover in the NFL. That's generally speaking how it works.
But if you're drafting an offensive lineman number 1 or in the first round, you're expecting that guy to come in and play 1,000 reps. You're expecting him to start. So the fact that he's not starting, and it's not like their offensive line last year, everybody was looking at it and saying, okay, this is the strongest group in the NFL.
The reports on Caleb Lomu so far have not been that encouraging, but they've also played him at different positions to try. Like he might be the 28th or whatever it was, 30th pick in the draft, and be more of a swing type of player and a backup for now before he moves into a starting role. But when you're playing guys
at different positions who you've drafted number 1 overall, it's not because you're just trying to build flexibility. It's trying to see whether he can beat out one of those guys that you're playing.
Look, I'm sure they would be thrilled if he was ready to come in and be like, I'm going to be the left guard or I'm going to be the right tackle for the future. I'm in complete agreement with you. But that team, I pull up their roster. It's like, what is their big weakness? I know everyone is concerned about the left side of their offensive line, but there's no perfect team in football. Like their roster, to me, looks considerably better on paper than it did last year, and they were in the Super Bowl.
But to Mike's point, then, if none of those guys have been able to beat out the ones must be significantly better. So then, from his perspective, what's the best thing to do? Protect that group, and then let all these other guys play.
I guess you're right. That is definitely a way to look at it. How many teams would trade rosters with the Patriots? Like, if the Patriots aren't a deep team, who is? Like, how many deep teams are there? I think they're pretty well equipped compared to the majority of teams in the league.
Any time you're going from the 1 to 2, there's going to be a drop off, probably. It's just how big of a drop off is it? And that's, from Mike's perspective, it's too big to risk losing one of those guys.
It was good Patriots coach speak, though, by Vrabel, by everybody. Let's go to Let's go to
Truth.
Yeah, AKA the truth. That's right. In Baltimore, the Ravens' defense has been very impressive this preseason. It was again this week against the Vikings. Through 2 preseason games, Coach, Baltimore has allowed 10 points, recorded 6 sacks with 2 takeaways. Of course, this Ravens squad coming off a season where they were 18th in points allowed. So, Coach, I know it's preseason, but they hired Jesse Minter from the Chargers. Do you expect the Ravens defense to return to their dominant form?
Was thinking a lot about preseason, and there were times going through preseason. Let's say you're struggling on 3rd down in preseason, or you're struggling in the red zone in preseason. My experience is that those problems tend to follow you into the regular season, and you'd like to say, okay, you're doing great in those areas, and you'd like to think there's this correlation between preseason performance and what you're going to get to during the regular season, but there's no definitive studies that show that correlation exists.
That makes sense.
So it's positive in the sense that if you are a new head coach and a new defensive coordinator and you go out in those first 2 opportunities for guys to see what you're doing, and then they have a lot of success, and then I think against Philly didn't have a first down against them, all positive. But on the flip side, this is a little bit of an indictment of Philly's offense and Minnesota's offense as well. Now, their numbers last year for Baltimore weren't very good, if we can bring them up. So you talked about the points per game at 18th, but look at the pass yards per game, not bad against the rush at the top 10, total yards per game 24th, and most of those guys are back. Now they had 2 guys on the team that have bumped up who are now starters, and they had Trey Hendrickson and Nate Wiggins, their number 1 overall draft pick at cornerback, so that should help the passing game component. It's just, can they go from 30th in offensive yards per game to a top 10 pass defense? Can they go from 24th in total yards per game to a top 10? it's hard to find the correlation of teams that have made that.
I don't think preseason, like, I would have answered this question yes before I saw the games in the preseason. I loved what they did this offseason. Now, they tried to get Max Crosby, backed out, ended up with Trey Hendrickson, but they were able to retain their draft capital in addition to it. Thought that worked out pretty well for Baltimore. And Jesse Minter overachieved relative to the talent that he had with the Chargers. So let's just first start with the Ravens side of it. This is what returning to dominance would look like for the Ravens. Like, last year was a year off for them. The thing that was devastating for them last year was the pass rush went away. Mm-hmm. And that's why they went out and got Hendrickson. Matty Luque's injury certainly played a role in it. But like, Baltimore had been, with this roughly collection of talent, they had been able to disrupt and make the other team's quarterback uncomfortable. Last year, that went away, so teams were like, we're not going to run against you. We're going to just sit back and throw because our quarterbacks are going to have all the time in the world to, pick them apart. And Jesse Minter with the Chargers, we were trying to figure out the best way to quantify this, and I'm not going to say that this is exact science, what I'm about to show you here, but I think if you just pulled up the rosters, you'd agree with me anyway. Look at the All-Pros, guys who have ever been an All-Pro on the Ravens versus where the Chargers were. The Ravens have the most defensive players who have been All-Pros. Now, that's not necessarily, not last year they were All-Pros, but at any time in their career. And only Calais Campbell is really past his prime. You're talking about Marlon Humphrey, Kyle Hamilton, Roquan Smith, Trey Hendrickson, first or second team All-Pros. If Jesse Minter was able to have the Chargers defense be better than the Ravens defense, considerably, with lesser talent, why would I not think that if Jesse Minter goes to a team with excellent talent, he won't be able to coach them up and be great?
Yeah, you look at a guy's track record of success, and you'd like to think that, you could go from one team to another team and be able to carry that concept forward and it'll hit. But do the things that the Chargers did well that allowed them to be where they were, will the Ravens be able to do it as well, under the same system? Do you have the same type of communicators? Are you going to carry the same philosophy? If they were built, and I'm not sure what Jesse's pressure philosophy is, if he was more of a high pressure guy with the Chargers, but they're not really built for that. In Baltimore, is it going to be apples to apples? It's encouraging right now. I'd say the other addendum is he's head coach, defensive coordinator. So he doesn't have the same level of time that he can spend on the defense that he had the luxury of having in LA.
So you don't buy right. So he's got to have head coach responsibilities, not just focus on that side of the ball. So you don't buy, like, to make it an analogy, like Jesse Minter's a great race car driver and he just got given a faster car.
Well, we see this all the time where a guy is an offensive guru. Just look at Denver. Sean Payton is pretty well established as as an outstanding offensive coach.
Yeah, great play caller.
Well, what's Denver been known for since he's been there? Their defense. It hasn't been their offense. So it's not apples to apples from when he was in New Orleans to when he was in Denver. He hasn't changed philosophically as a head coach. He hasn't forgotten how to coach offense. It's just been a very different group of players that he's got to pull together and try to figure out how to make it like he had in New Orleans.
I'm trying not to fall for the preseason hype. It's possible, though.
You're the hype guy.
It's
August and you're the hype guy.
I'm the hype guy with predictions week 1 week from today. It's not even going to be like in vogue for people to pick the Cowboys to make the Super Bowl. Bucky Brooks, the list just gets longer and longer. Welcome back to First Things First. We're talking some Cowboys who seem to have a lot of positive momentum, juice, expectations heading into the 2026 season. Count NFL.com's Bucky Brooks among those buying Cowboys stocks. Brooks writes, "I'm not crying wolf. 2026 is the year the boys reemerge as a true Super Bowl contenders." And he gave us 3 reasons why. He says, Dak Prescott is an underrated MVP candidate. The Cowboys' unstoppable offense is even better in 2026. And finally, defensive coordinator Christian Parker is quietly building a real defense. Now, Brian Hoyer, kind enough to join us now. Brian, will get you in here. Is the hype around the Cowboys, and now this is sports talk on television, so we love to hype the Cowboys. Is the hype on the Cowboys too high, too low, or just right?
Well, Coach and I were kind of brought up, and the rule was don't believe or fuel the hype. But I'm in the media now, so I'm all about the hype, Danny. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Look, to me, the biggest flaw of the Cowboys has been the weakness on the defense. Well, what did they do in the offseason? They addressed the defense. Obviously, they traded for Quinnen Williams last year, but they go out and get Rashawn Gary. You draft Caleb Downs, who I thought was probably the most pro-ready prospect in the draft last year. And you go and get Kobe Durant, Jalen Thompson. So they made the improvements on the defense. And really, offensively, there's no flaws. I mean, you got the duo at the receiver position between CeeDee Lamb and Pickens. Javonte Williams had a great year last year. I think Shoddy, taking over as the head coach, said, look, we got to emphasize the run game a little bit more. We can't just throw it all the time, even though we have these great receivers. And you throw in Ferguson in there in a really solid line. And I think Dak, look, as a quarterback, you're always going to get judged with how far can you take your team. But when it comes to being a leader, being a quarterback, throwing the football around, Dak is as good as any of them in the NFL. And so I'm all for the hype. I really do. And I think, especially in that division, the Eagles are at a bit of a transition right now, right? You got a new offensive coordinator, Sean Mannion, working in with Jalen Hurts. A.J. Brown's gone. And the big thing is the Cowboys actually took one of the Eagles coaches in Coach Parker, and he's going to be over there kind of implementing that Vic Fangio style scheme. So I'm buying the hype on the Cowboys for sure.
You couldn't buy any Dallas Cowboys stock last preseason when Brian Schottenheimer took over. So Brian was my offensive coordinator in New York, and I really liked him, and I thought he was getting killed when they promoted him, and he was really talented, and he's shown that, which is great. And he's in year 2 of the system, but the hype's a little bit too high. As a stock, I'd say this is a hold as opposed to a buy right now. They haven't been to the NFC Championship in 30 years. And Dak's best season was his rookie season when he won 13 games, and he hasn't won 13 games since then. He's had some outstanding defenses. When Dan Quinn was there, they were great. And as much as the division is in flux, it's still a very talented division. Eagles in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. You got Washington, who knows where Jaden Daniels comes out this year. They were in the NFC Championship game. The Giants, they get Harbaugh. What does that transition look like? I know, Brian, you probably aren't manifesting. I don't think that was ever part of our program or had a shirt that said Gotti or any of that stuff. I think they're adding unnecessary pressure and expectations, and I don't see how that helps them. Danny loves it.
Yeah, I agree. I always along the lines of undersell, over deliver. But this is the Dallas Cowboys we're talking about. I think if you would have told me, when they traded Micah Parsons last year, I thought, man, that's your best defensive player. What are you doing? Well, you brought in Kenny Clark. You go and get Quinnen Williams. You draft a few guys. I really love Caleb Downs and what he brings to the defense. And with Christian Parker coming over from the Eagles, there's been a lot of talk about how Vic Fangio is using Cooper DeJean, right? I think Caleb Downs is going to play that role. He's going to be a safety where he can also cover the slot. Then he can move to nickel. He can move to the dime. So I look, there's a lot left to be seen, but I do know I really enjoyed watching Shoddy and the way the team responded to him last year. I think you have Dak, who's going to put the team in the best position to win. And if it's really about that defense, getting stops, because I think this offense is going to score 28 plus points a game.
So that's right there at the end, Brian, we know they have a Super Bowl caliber offense. And the question is, can their defense just be good enough? And what I love about the hype around Dallas this year is that even if you disagree with it, and sure, there was the acronym on the early press conference from Dak, and he wore the T-shirt when he reported to training camp. So cutesy things that you
Super Bowl alarm clock.
Yeah, the alarm clock. Okay, fine. But it is most of the hype is football driven. New coach on defense, no drama around a George Pickens contract. They retained George Pickens. They signed Quinnen Williams. They used 2 first-round picks on defensive players. They spent more money on a defensive player in free agency than any year since 2012. You had to go back to Brandon Carr. They're going to have 5 new starters on defense this year, a new scheme on defense. To Brian's point, some questions in Philly. Yes, it's the Dallas Cowboys are a show. Jerry Jones produces it as such. Netflix documentary notwithstanding, so much media attention that little things are going to always seep its way into the bloodstream of the internet and the sports take industrial complex, like alarm clocks and T-shirts and stuff like that. And I know it's always going to drive you crazy, Coach. But the majority of the hype, I think, is about what if a top 5 offense gets a top 15 defense and how good they could be.
I've been so impressed by Jerry Jones this offseason.
That's part of it.
But 2 years ago, he said we're going all in, and they did nothing. And then this year, he said nothing, and they've literally gone all in. They drafted, they added free agents, they made trades, they spent money. I love that part of it. I think changing defensive coordinator, as much as we want to say, okay, there's definitely going to be this uptick, he still is a young defensive coordinator. I think he's the youngest they've ever had in Dallas, and so there's going to be a learning curve with him as well. Hopefully they can go from where they were last year, which we're not talking about a high starting point, to somewhere in the middle, and that should translate into more wins. I just don't think there's value to creating expectations in August as opposed to just quietly working and building up to the season and then going and having the expectations put on based off your performance.
Brian, do you think the defense is, what would you say your expectations are for the defense? Because it's a lot of new, so I think people like me are just like, well, it has to be better because it's different. Or do you actually believe in what they're doing there?
No, I think the scheme is actually going to fit the players that they have. They've acquired really good players to go along with it. Look, Coach and I are always going to are going to lean back on what we were brought up in. Until you go out and prove it, you kind of want to just sit there silently and sneak up on people. But this is Dallas. This is the gambler, Jerry Jones. And so he's kind of right. Like they didn't really talk much this offseason. They did their talking with the moves that they made. And so Christian Parker has got to go in. You got to install a system. That's going to take some time. There will be a little bit of growing pains. But if they can get that under wraps and get that going early in the season, we know the offense is going to score points. So I'm looking at this defense. If you start off and you gradually get a little bit better, and by the end of the year, you're playing, you understand the system, and you're only giving up 14. I think even if you give up 21 points, you would probably say the Cowboys have a good chance of winning that game.
All right, I'm coming out on just right on the amount of hype for the Cowboys right now because it's football hype. The Chargers, though, as we move on, were hit with some very bad news yesterday, really just confirming what we already expected. Veteran center Tyler Biadasz was placed on season-ending injured reserve. Biadasz suffered the damage to his ACL and additional injuries to his left knee during a joint practice with the 49ers last Tuesday. So that's their $30 million on that 3-year deal contract coach, Tyler Biadasz, out for the season. Another offensive line injury in front of Justin Herbert. Too soon for Chargers fans to panic?
Yeah, look, it's terrible whenever you lose a starter. It's terrible when you lose a free agent that you spent a lot of money to bring in and hopefully upgrade the team. But the good news for the Chargers is their second-round draft pick was a center. And Jake Slaughter out of Florida, he started 33 games there. He's known to be smart, like a really smart player, athletic, so he'll be able to handle protections and things like that. And they've been working him at other spots. They've been working him at guard, but he's going back to his natural position. It's not like he was a guard that has to now transition into center. He's going from a position that he wasn't natural at to a position he is natural at. So it's about as good as it can be, considering that this is a season-ending injury, to have a second-round draft pick that a lot of people feel really good about to be able to plug in.
Yeah, I think Jake Slaughter is the saving grace in this situation. You drafted him in the second round. You were going to plug him in because he's going to be one of your best linemen playing at guard. Now you can slide him back over to your natural position. I will say this, having played in this West Coast system under Kyle Shanahan, who obviously Mike McDaniel is very close with, that center position is the heart and soul of that line. They make all the calls. They have to be able to get people going to the right blocking schemes, all of those things. When we were in Cleveland, we had Alex Mack, who was one of the best centers in the league. And midway through the season, we lost him, and we were able to hold it together for a little bit past that, a few weeks after he got hurt. But ultimately, he was so hard to replace. And so now you have to put that responsibility on this young center. But as Coach said, like, smart kid, athletic. And the one question I would have is, you have this great veteran quarterback in Justin Herbert. Does Mike McDaniel maybe say, hey, look, we're going to give you some of the responsibility that the center typically would have because we need to work this guy in and get him ready and get his feet wet. He's a rookie playing arguably the most important position on the line with the scheme that we run.
So I hear you, Brian, on the importance of the center in that offense and on the offensive line and calling out the checks. But at best, he's their third best offensive lineman. right?
Yeah.
He is their third best offensive lineman. Rashawn Slater and Joe Alt are back. They're two of the 4 highest paid players on the team. So I would just say you can't panic over your third best offensive lineman being injured. Like if your third best offensive lineman being out for the season causes panic or derails your season, then you were never going to have a good year to begin with. Like last year, why I got criticized for making excuses for Justin Herbert was pointing to the offensive line and all of the things that were around him. But I said, like, he lost one of the best left tackles in football and one of the best right tackles in football, and they started 10 different offensive line combinations, which was the second most in the NFL, and he was sacked. Only 2 guys in the league, Cam Ward and Geno Smith, were sacked more than Justin Herbert. Like, it was a critical mass. It was an accumulation of things. This isn't even 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when Corey Linsley, their Pro Bowl center, played a few games and then had it was a heart problem that emerged. It was like an out-of-nowhere mid-season thing, and it ended. Or Rashawn Slater the year before that when he had tore his biceps. Like, the Chargers have dealt with way bigger setbacks than having a month before the season, 3.5 weeks before the season, their third best offensive lineman getting out. Like, I'm not saying it's not a loss. It is. But this should not be the type of thing that derails a season, Coach.
Yeah, I think a lot of people underrate the position of center because it's not a glamorous position. So when I was in New York in the first round, we drafted Nick Mangold, and when I was in Cleveland in the first round, we drafted Alex Mack. And for me, that was so important because he's one of 2 guys that handles the ball every single play. And then in our system, the quarterback would point out who the Mike was. In a lot of systems, the center has to point out who the Mike is, and he's responsible for the protection. So when you've got a person who's responsible for protection and setting that much responsibility for dealing with blitzes and things like that, it's easy to underestimate their value because, again, most people don't get it. But it's so critical to have a guy that can do that and do it really well.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, the guy touches the football on every single play, getting it to the quarterback. And now not only you have to work on that, you got to get out there, and people take it for granted. But Coach, you know, if you fumbled a snap in practice here in New England, you were taking a lap. Like, this is something that you do every single day over and over again. You have to build up that relationship, and you got a young guy doing it now, taking over. Not only does he have to get people going to line up the right way, he's snapping the ball and having to block. And so you're right. He's their third best lineman because they have 2 great tackles, but he has to get everybody going in the right direction.
Ryan, how many times did you hear it's the most basic play in football? They're doing it at Foxborough High School, 1,000 times.
You know, my rookie year, I fumbled a snap. They put me in there with the starters with Dan Copen. I fumbled a snap, and Dan cussed me out the entire lap around. You rookie, you can't get the snap. So, like, people take it for granted. They do, but it's one of those things. There's some intricacies to that, and now they're going to have to get caught up on the center snap, the cadence, all of those things. Jake Slaughter's going to have to get up to speed on now that he's touching the football and not playing guard.
It's a Patriots reunion here on First Things First, and coming up next, we got a weird one as the Browns' rookie tight end is heading back to school. That's right, from the NFL to LSU. Don't see that every day. Back here doing some weird and wonderful. I'll take it from here, Wilds, who will be back next week. It's wonderful. Kyle Kirkwood wins the Freedom 250 Grand Prix this weekend. Took the lead early from Alex Palou, held on late. Friend of the show, Kyle Kirkwood. Coach, fastest car you've ever driven?
I don't know. A Porsche. My brother had a Porsche for a little while. I drove it. Had pretty good get up.
My 94 Camry.
Kill it.
Woo!
Nice.
Yeah. I crushed it in high school, Brian. You can believe it.
I got a rented Range Rover on the Autobahn in Germany and got up to like 120. So that was
that's
fun.
nice.
Yeah.
Shocking. Professional quarterback has driven the fastest car. More on breaking news later in the show. Weird. Check out Eagles running back Carson Steele with the hurdle on his way to scoring.
Oh, sweet.
Brian, you got one more hurdle left in you?
I have no hurdles, and if I fell down like this, I think I'd be on IR for the rest of the year. I was at this game doing the sideline. He had a few hurdles in that game. It was pretty impressive. He's taken a thing or two from Saquon.
All right. Oh, that's good. He's learning in practice. Wonderful. Jacob Young doing his best Spider-Man impression. Catch of the year? We give this award out almost every week, but Coach, not bad.
That's
2 feet
really
on the wall? It's pretty good.
Yeah, those nice ups. I give a catch of the year. I mean, we pretty much give
We
that
give it out a
like
lot.
every day we give catch of the year. So I'll do catch of the year.
We're pretty liberal with catch of the year nominees around here, but that's pretty good. To the wonderful, this one has a special place in my heart. Cowboys quarterback Joe Milton, 53 yards, flick of the wrist in the air. Jonathan Mingo on the receiving end of the touchdown. Now, Brian, this throw reminds me of another Joe Milton throw. I've been a Joe Milton guy since the Orange Bowl. That is him throwing an orange 110 yards in the air. I saw that video and I was like, you know what? I want to draft him. Brian, good way to scout a player?
He's got the strongest arm I've ever seen. Obviously, he was here in New England to start his career. I went to practice and I said, I don't even know if these guys are going to be able to catch some of these throws that he's unleashing. So incredible arm strength. I mean, he threw that last go for a touchdown with just the flick of the wrist. So super impressive.
All right, see? Strongest arm he's ever seen.
Yeah, Danny's thinking about adding the orange throw to the combine.
I mean, I've seen worse ways to scout guys. This is kind of wonderful if you're missing hoops. FIBA Basketball World Cup. Check out Wemby. It's back-to-back blocks and off Joker, who gives him a nice little reaction here. But this is arguably best on best in 1 and 2. That's not bad. That's not bad. It's football season right around the corner, but I'm also ready for some hoops. Should be a good year in the NBA. All right, let's get to it now. Time for afternoon headlines, sponsored by Ram Trucks. Nothing stops Rams. Browns tight end Dae'Quan Wright is going back to school. Now, Wright, who played for Ole Miss last season, was signed by the Eagles this summer as an undrafted free agent. He eventually was claimed off waivers by the Browns. However, Cleveland eventually waived him, and now after clearing waivers, Wright has chosen to sign with LSU to play college football again. The tight end is believed to be the first player to return to college after signing with an NFL team. Here's Browns head coach Todd Monken's reaction to everything I just said. Take a listen.
I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, you know, I wondered why Lane Kiffin reached out a week ago. Now I know. I mean, I didn't know. Now I know. I didn't call him back. Now I guess I should have.
I mean, it's an incredible quote by Todd Monken. I guess he's too busy to call back Lane Kiffin. Brian, what do you make of Dae'Quan Wright going back to college?
Basically what Todd Monken just said. I mean, first of all, the more I watch Todd Monken's press conferences, the more I like him. I mean, he keeps it real. But this is unprecedented. And I would just say, like, don't hate the player, hate the game. Like, I'm not mad at Dae'Quan Wright for going and doing this. It's available to him. To me, the Pandora's box that's being opened right now, I don't know how you go back. Like, I was going to ask Coach, if you're an NFL coach and you cut a guy and he goes back to college, how do you evaluate him? Do you evaluate him next year coming into the draft? Does he sign as a free agent? Can you get drafted twice? I have no idea the path that we're going down right now with what's going on in college football.
Yeah, I don't think anybody has any idea. And it is wild, but everything that's happening in college football is wild right now. And I don't mind if he has an opportunity to go and make some money playing college football that he wouldn't have in pro football, then he should have every right to do that. And hopefully he'll make a lot of money and maybe he'll put some better tape on to where he could get drafted higher. We got to stop with the make-believe that it's about student athletes or about the education. That college football is just pro football's minor league. That's all it is. And I would imagine at some point you should have the ability, if you're the Cleveland Browns and you need a tight end, to go and bring him up from LSU and let him play.
Well, they waived him.
It should go both ways because he's been in pro football. So any team that wants a tight end, if he's mid-season, you need him, hey, we'll sign you.
I like that.
Well, so you say you like it. I mean, they did waive him. I only laugh at it because it is so absurd, but I can't really say it's absurd because it's not any more absurd than this. And we all know the questions before the show, but we do not know each other's opinions. And Coach, you and I are of one mind here. They should change the acronym. It should no longer be the NCAA. It should be the Professional College Sports Association. It's not necessarily minor leagues to the pros because some college players make more money than pro players. It's just professional sports who wear college jerseys. That's what it is. Like Carson Beck leading it to the national championship. He was asked by a reporter who clearly didn't really know what was going on. He was asked, he was like, so did you go to class this week in the lead up to the title game? He's like, I graduated 2 years ago. I didn't go to class.
Yep.
Like that's not what it is. It's just they can make millions of dollars playing college sports with agents, and I'm all for players getting paid and name, image, and likeness, but they had such little, they being the NCAA, had such little foresight as to what was going to happen that it was lawless for so long that now we have situations like this where guys in basketball can play in the G League and then go back to college. You get 26-year-old college basketball players. This is patently ridiculous to anybody who understands college sports and pro sports, but given that none of this has been governed effectively, why not? Good for Dae'Quan Wright. Go make $1 million to play tight end for LSU.
But it's not really ridiculous. College football has been pro football's minor league for a long time, and there's been a lot of money in college football for a long time. It just hasn't been openly reported. It's existed, and we can pretend like it hasn't existed, but that's the reality of it. And to me, it's now really Division III, and to some degree Division II is more in line with what the NCAA will be governing, as opposed to what's happening in big time football. It's just pro football on a developmental level.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's your new acronym is appropriate. I actually saw this on the internet the other day. It was listing the salaries of the top 5 college quarterbacks and the top 5 rookie quarterbacks. And Darian Mensah is making more than Ty Simpson, Carson Beck, Drew Allar, and Cade Klubnik this year playing quarterback for the University of Miami. And now, look, the players do deserve to be compensated. I remember being a quarterback at Michigan State, hoping my dad would slip me a 50 before he left for the weekend after my game, so I'd be able to eat, a good meal that weekend. So there's definitely got to be some type of middle ground here, but this is obviously unprecedented. Be in the NFL for an entire offseason and go back to college.
LSU pays well. It's the minimum rate on a practice squad player. I was reading, $13,000 a week or whatever it ended up being, if you were on the practice squad. There's not a lot of transparency around what these players are getting in college. So Brian, whatever you read on the internet about that quarterback, maybe it's true, maybe it's not. I don't know, but it's clearly, based on the television contracts, millions and millions of dollars that's available to these players. So it doesn't surprise me at all that he can make more money playing college football.
Hedge funds are starting to buy into universities. I would imagine that eventually funds will or individuals will own college sports teams where the college will sell the rights and that person or that hedge fund will run the team like a professional team.
The PCSA, the Professional College Sports Association. It solves a lot of problems.
As long as you can have some rules that are binding.
Yeah, like competent leadership with a little bit of foresight to see a problem, to see around a corner. Like that
collective bargaining agreement is going to be a pretty big struggle to get signed with that many teams.
I know, but they're all in denial.
There's only 32 in the NFL. There's a lot more in college.
There are a lot more in college. Coming up, though, have the Browns made the correct choice for QB1? And will that choice only exist for a week or two? Live from New York, it's the show that's guaranteed to start the season off hot. It's First Things First. Now, coming up, Caleb Williams says the Bears offense should be rolling by week 1. You expect them to? Coach, don't answer that. I do. Bears offense will be just fine. And also, George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey are back. How dangerous is a healthy 49ers squad? We'll get to it. But we begin hour number 2 with the big news of the day out of Cleveland. Adam Schefter and Ian Rappaport reported it, but also the team announced it, that Deshaun Watson has been named the Browns starting quarterback over Shedeur Sanders. There's a lot there, Brian. Did the Browns get this right?
I mean, if you had asked me before this press conference, I thought, especially talking to my family, having grown up in Ohio, talking to media members, that Deshaun Watson would be the quarterback. After he made those comments, I thought there's no way Todd Monken can stick with him. But what this tells me is how far ahead is actually Deshaun Watson was of Shedeur Sanders. If you're sticking with him after those comments he made, and I know he tried to walk him back, it just tells me that the decision was probably made beforehand. And even regardless of the comments, they wanted to stick with the guy that they felt, at least early on, gave him the best chance to win football games. So look, having grown up in Cleveland, it's a blue collar town. Deshaun Watson, you haven't lived up to the contract, that fully guaranteed contract on your half or your side up to this point. And I get it. I thought when they cheered when he got hurt, it was terrible. I thought, no player should have to deal with that, dealing with an injury. But look, I played quarterback for the Cleveland Browns, and I was a hometown kid, and they booed me too. So it's a result-driven business. You got to sometimes keep those things close to the vest. I like the fact that he came out and walked it back a little bit, but it just to me shows that this competition was already pretty much over with, because Deshaun didn't even play that well the other day to begin with. So the decision was probably already made. They want to go with a guy who's a veteran, albeit he hasn't played a lot the past few seasons. And I heard you guys talking before, it's always easier to go back to Shedeur than start to Shedeur and then go to Deshaun Watson.
Brian and I have being booed in Cleveland in common.
Nice.
I've experienced that plenty too. I've gone through quarterback competitions. I've gone through situations where you have to make decisions, and sometimes it's not necessarily getting to the right answer. It's just that you've got a bunch of questions, and there is no great answer. There is no right answer necessarily. There's just questions that have to be answered. And organizationally, this is a question that has to be answered. And with Deshaun, with his contract, with the fact that he's healthy, with the fact that he has produced in the past, with the way that quarterbacks who have struggled in the past have now excelled at other teams, there's a track record for that. So that's what they're hoping for. And look at last year, and even this year, Joe Flacco's still playing. Joe Flacco won some games last year. Phillip Rivers came off the couch and played quarterback. Unbelievable. So the idea that Deshaun Watson could play well again is not unbelievable. If anything, we see that it is possible, and I'm sure that's what they want to find out. And to Brian's point, I bet you he's been a lot better in meetings. I bet you he's been a lot better in practice because he has a lot more experience, and he has a lot. He should be. He should be. And they're going to go into the season and see if they can answer some of these questions.
Yeah, the answer probably is that there is no right answer. Like, neither one of these guys is very good.
That's
right.
That's probably where we're headed.
That's the overwhelming likelihood here, is that they're building a pretty nice team, but they are in such a disadvantaged position because of the worst transaction in NFL history. 3 first-round picks, fully guaranteed contract, $230 million contract. They got 19 games out of him, and he was terrible in the 19 games that he played. And you add in the off the field and the PR hit and the immorality of the situation, and it just is a franchise crippling thing that is going to take years and years to claw out of. And neither one of these guys, you're talking about a 5th round pick and a guy coming off of an Achilles injury who hasn't been good in 5 years. These are not good options for a team with quarterback. And I just think Deshaun is clearly wrong that it's not performance-based. Like, his performance has been awful. And to Brian's point about Cleveland being a blue-collar town, they also have never seen good quarterback play. So no disrespect, I apologize. I didn't even think about who I was saying that to.
Wow.
But you know what I mean.
Wow,
Like,
shots
they did
fired,
not have
Brian.
a franchise quarterback in their history who has, going into Canton wearing a Browns jersey, who has won Super Bowls for them. Like, they are waiting for that. They thought this guy was going to be that, and he isn't. And then he's up there fixing his earring with his big watch and his big jewelry that he's earned through the contract, but not because he's been great on the field. And optically, it's like he said in that clip, we didn't play it, but in the totality of the press conference, he's like, I have no regrets in my life. You can't think of anything that you might regret, Deshaun? Really? Like, it does not come across as a person with a lot of self-awareness or contrition or accepting of his role in how he is being treated by the Cleveland fans. And I've said it before about him, and I'll say it again. He is not the victim in a story that has real victims. So I don't feel myself feeling badly for Deshaun Watson because he went 5 of 12 in a preseason game and got booed.
Look, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that we see whoever the 3rd quarterback is in Cleveland this season.
Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah, if Dylan is the last man standing in Cleveland as the 3rd quarterback, I could see this, at some point in the year where he gets an opportunity. Because the thing, if neither of these guys ends up being the answer, you've got to go through the whole roster of quarterbacks to see if anybody gives you some glimmer of hope, and then at least you go into the offseason saying, okay, this is where we are. Todd Monken can clearly make a case for this is how we have to move forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, look, they're going to be in QB purgatory. They're going to keep adding names to that infamous jersey with all the quarterback names on it, where my name is right there in the middle. And don't worry, Danny, I was okay, and then I kind of fell off. So no hurt feelings over here. I'm not going to hold you to it the way Deshaun Watson held the fans in Cleveland to it.
As soon as I said it, I was like, this could get awkward. But that picture of the fan with all of the jerseys is a remarkable avatar for what Browns fans have been through at the most important position in football. So I appreciate your forgiveness there. Let's talk Caleb Williams, who made his preseason debut against the Bengals this weekend. Also wasn't anything spectacular, going 2 for 5 for 28 yards in his lone series of the game. Brian, do you expect the Bears to get off to a hot start this year?
I mean, I would hope so in Caleb's second year in this system. Now, we talked about hype earlier before about the Cowboys. I mean, Ben Johnson came out and did the hype train for the Bears and said he wants to break records, the highest scoring offense of all time. So he's clearly feeling good about it. He's clearly feeling good about where Caleb Williams is. And I think for Caleb, the best thing that ever happened to him was Ben Johnson coming in and just trying to teach him how to play the position, how to play within the system. And when it's not there, use your God-given abilities like we see on a play just like that. He's so unique in the way he plays the game. And so I would expect, with this being his second year, a full offseason under his belt of running OTAs and training camp and all of those things, I think that they should come out hot. They've clearly put the players around Caleb to allow him to be great.
I think that when you look at the start of the season, they've got some challenging games. You feel like Carolina's a lock.
I did not say it was a lock. I said if they do not win at Carolina, I'm going to be very, very uncomfortable to be around on Monday. That's what I said.
They've got the Eagles. They've got the Packers in those first 5 games.
Brian Flores, Vikings defense.
Well, it's not just that, but we don't know what Kyler Murray's going to be and how that's going to work out. So you could say the Jets is probably the brightest star on that list, but all those other ones are challenging. And when you look at the Bears, I know you don't like to consider this, but there is a defense. And yeah, I know. They actually have to play defense, and they weren't very good defensively last year. Yeah.
Okay.
29th in total yards, 23rd in points allowed last year. Both those are challenges. They signed 2 guys in the secondary, and both of them are hurt. So now the third guy is a rookie draft pick who I think is going to be very good, first-round draft pick, and Thieneman, but they tried to address some of those problems, and 2 of those guys aren't going to be available. So can they outscore everybody? Is this the Dallas program from last year where they've got to score a bunch? Is this going to be the Cincinnati Bengals? Like, what are we talking about?
You know what's funny is, you and I have now worked together for a couple of years, and you're starting to be able to read me like a book. Because even though the question here is expect Bears to get off to a hot start this year, in my head and how I prepped it, I had the question as expect Bears to get off to a hot start on offense this year.
Yeah.
Because I absolutely do.
That's not what the question was.
I absolutely do.
That's how I took it.
Thank you, Brian. Because that's what Caleb was talking about. Like because they didn't score on his drive. I expect the Bears to get off to a hot start on offense. Because listen, I am 100% with you. I've got serious questions about that defense. They're not going to lead the league in takeaways. Again, they got 12 interceptions from last year that aren't even on the team this year. And then to your point, the guys who they replaced them with that they thought were upgrades in terms of overall play, guys like Kobe Bryant from the Seahawks, are hurt and potentially out for the year. Kyler Gordon is still hurt. I do think the Jalen Johnson return is going to be massive for them because I do consider him a true number 1 cornerback, friend of the show, by the way. But so I think the defense, hopefully in the aggregate, will be healthier this year than last year, but is still clearly a weak point. And to your last point, though, Coach, yeah, I do think that the formula is Dallas. I think that Ben Johnson said what he said because he is not afraid of hype and expectations for his offense. I know that he believes they can be the best offense in football. So I do think they expect to be scoring 28-plus points per game.
Dallas last year barely missed the playoffs. In 4 out of their last 5 games, I think their opponent, averaged about 34 points a game?
I'm not saying that they're conceding the defense will be bad, but I do think that they expect to win games by scoring a ton of points.
Which I get, which is the same program that Cincinnati's been on for a few years, and that hasn't worked out. Dallas was on it last year. That didn't work out. So, and to Caleb's point, there's going to be some bad days. There's going to be some days where, as hot as they may be, it's not very hot offensively. And what are they going to do?
Well, you remember when I picked the schedule.
Yeah.
I had them starting 7-0.
Was it 7-0?
Yeah, I gave them a loss week 8 at Seattle. That's
Vegas had it at about 1% chance of happening.
It's a tough game week 8 at Seattle. 7-0, no Micah in that Packers game. It seems sensible. On to the Falcons. One of the last ones standing with an open quarterback competition, and this is a legit quarterback competition. It was looking like Tua was a lock, but now Michael Penix Jr. has been cleared to fully participate in practice starting this weekend, and NFL sources revealed to CBS Sports that the third-year quarterback has still impressed to make what's left of the competition interesting, saying, quote, some of the balls that jump out of his hand and that kind of live arm, it's impressive to see. And on the competition, quote, you're able to get a real sense from that aspect now and who's able to bring this offense to life, end quote. Now, Brian, Coach and I disagree a little bit here, so we'll start with you. Who do you want to see start week 1, Michael Penix or Tua?
Well, I mean, I think for me, when you talk about this competition, I thought it would be the last one to be settled just because of where Penix was coming from his rehab. And now that he's out there, I just feel like if you're Kevin Stefanski and the Falcons, you want to give Michael Penix every opportunity to win this job because he's younger, right? Tua's been established. He's played long enough. You got him on a cheap contract, and he's been able to hold the fort down while Penix is rehabbing. But to me, if you're the Falcons front office and head coach, you want to see Penix because if he can answer the bell, now you don't have to address the quarterback position going forward. So I would assume, even if it's a little bit too late for him to get back in and Tua starts, I would assume you see Penix early taking over that role because they got to be able to see, is he the guy of the future or not?
Yeah, I would imagine that they're going to go with Tua, and they should go to Tua just because he has more experience. He's played well in spurts in Miami. With Penix, as much as he's been cleared, it's like any rehab from injury. It's very different where you're controlling everything and you're able to anticipate reactions versus having to react to live bullets and let your body take over. So with Tua being able to play early, again, going from Tua to Penix is probably going to be easier, going from Penix to Tua. So that same argument is in play as well. And the first 4 games, they play mid-level defenses, or what was mid-level defenses last season, probably gives you a better chance to win early.
I think that part makes sense. It just feels like Tua is so far ahead because if he's just getting cleared now and the games are starting in a couple of weeks, that makes sense.
He's so far ahead from an experience perspective, too, in terms of games played versus
Yeah, well, sure, the games played. I know that Penix had been doing the 7-on-7 stuff, but he's finally now getting cleared for the 11-on-11, and he can take a hit, and which is obviously the last hurdle that he could clear. I would just say that I don't know that I would ever feel comfortable committing to Tua. Like, he has a great 8 games. He has a great 12 games. He has a great 16 games. Whatever it is, it would just always be in the back of my mind that one concussion could potentially derail a season where a lot of guys are coming back in 1 or 2 weeks, and for him, it is such a serious issue, and it would take him a lot longer to come back. And I know Penix has had serious injury concerns in the past. It's his 3rd ACL injury with college and the pros, but they're in an interesting spot because it's a new coach and a new general manager in Stefanski and Ian Cunningham. So they didn't draft Penix, but to Brian, to your point, because of the age, even if neither coach or GM is really tied to either of these players long term, I think if they could push the button and say this guy represents the higher ceiling for the future of our franchise, they would choose the younger player who doesn't have the concussion scare.
Yeah, you just saw the quote about the ball jumping out of his arm. No one's ever going to say that about Tua. And I think it's actually kind of disappointing from Tua's perspective. Like, you've had the advantage. You've been out there and you haven't separated yourself to the point where they're like, all right, we're just going to go with Tua. We're going to let Penix, get healed up, rehab, be ready to go. Like, they're still keeping it open. And so to me, I think I agree with Coach. They're going to start with Tua because of his experience of being a veteran guy, because he's had experience all offseason. And I think at that point, it'll be a short leash. It'll be like, 4 games in. If it's not going well with Tua, we're going to go with Penix because ultimately we have to see what this guy can do and determine if he's an option for the future with this new staff that's down there in Atlanta.
All right, coming up, there is a team that actually got some good news on the injury front, the 49ers. How dangerous are they if we actually say, you know what, they're going to get a healthy year, which happens every year to a few teams in the NFL? We welcome you back to First Things First. We go to San Francisco. Not as affordable. The 49ers finally got some good injury news on Sunday. Tight end George Kittle was activated off the PUP list. Running back Christian McCaffrey practiced for the first time since August 10th. All right, guys. So the question is going to be, how dangerous is a healthy Niners squad? And I fully understand any team could be decimated by injuries, and injuries are the variable that we can't predict, but the Niners have more older players, so they're maybe more susceptible to injuries. All of that conceded. But I want to kind of make the case that the Niners might be like the dangerous team that we're forgetting about. If they have Christian McCaffrey, they are good. I mean, they've had a really high floor when he plays. And when they've had him and George Kittle, they've been basically unbeatable. So McCaffrey gets there in October of 2022. When both of them play, they win 76% of their games. When they have neither of them, they're 0-2. They've been decimated by injuries at various points over the last 3 seasons. But it feels like every year when we're doing shows, Coach, around playoff time, we're talking about, well, this team was hurt. This team is healthy. This team is like we saw it last year in the playoff game between San Francisco and Seattle. Like San Francisco was really hurt. Seattle was really healthy. Seattle was coming off the bye. Seattle thrashes San Francisco. Want to put up this graphic. There are teams last year that had the fewest games missed by starters. Guys who started week 1. There's a common theme here. Eagles, playoff team. Texans, playoff team. Colts and Chiefs. Okay, they weren't very injured, but they lost their quarterback. Tough to recover when you lose your starting quarterback. Seattle, Super Bowl winner. Patriots, Super Bowl runner-up. Broncos, 14-win team. Like, if you are healthy, you win a lot of games. So I guess my question to you two, and you guys can take it from here. Brian, I'll go to you first. If the Niners get a healthy season from the right players, Purdy, McCaffrey, Kittle, Trent Williams, Bosa, like the stars, are they dangerous?
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind. And another slogan Coach will know is there's nothing more important than the health of the team. And so you just talk about those teams that you showed right there, fewest missed games. The 49ers, I would assume, were on the opposite end of the spectrum and still had a deep playoff run. And that
Third
most. Yeah, it talks about, to me, how great of a coach Kyle Shanahan and his staff are. I mean, they were able to withstand Purdy going down. Mac Jones revitalizes his career. All these guys get hurt. Someone else steps up. And to me, as you watched them play last year, you just saw guys stepping up left and right, guys we'd never heard of, filling in for Fred Warner, all of these guys stepping up. And so to me, you're right. If you have those players that are healthy with the quality of coaching that they have out there, they're definitely dangerous. Now, they're probably in arguably the toughest division in all of football in the NFC West, because to me, on paper, I don't know if there's ever been a team as well put together as the Rams. The Seahawks are the defending Super Bowl champs. But the 49ers, I expect fully to be in the mix, because if they can get the players healthy, maybe we get that electrical substation moved down the road, then maybe now you take the good quality of coaching with your star players and you make a run come January.
Yeah, they were hurt a ton and they were dangerous. And what was it, 12 games, which is amazing considering the amount of time that the starters missed. The problem is that they're still one of the oldest teams in the NFL, and that's always an issue. And it's similar to Washington's problem. When you have an old team, typically about mid-season, those teams' injuries spike, and when you have a young team, those teams, the young players are emerging and growing, and they tend to get better. And philosophically, they're fine with building with older players. And the reality is when you build that way, you deal with a much higher injury rate. And you could take the 49ers over multiple years. The last 5 years, they're got to be either the highest amount of games missed by starters, or right there in the top 5 with the highest amount of games missed by starters.
So is it even worth the hypothetical? Because I would always say hope is not a plan. You can't just hope that they're going to be healthy. You have to have a younger roster and have more depth and those sort of things. But I can see a world where the 49ers get good luck with injuries this year. And you could say it would be luck because of their age and their injury history. But in a year where they get good luck with injuries, I feel like they are the forgotten Super Bowl contender.
Absolutely. And every year there has to be an element of good luck with injuries, and some teams get bit by the bug and they have a young team, and that happens, and vice versa, where you get extremely lucky and you don't miss a lot of time with your stars. The problem is statistically, and what we've seen over time is, it's going to be a function of luck, not a function of what will probably happen in order for them to operate that way.
Yeah, I think it's just there is an element of luck. I mean, I look at the time that I played, you tear an ACL, it's not it's a non-routine play. Like some of those injuries are just freak occurrences that you really can't avoid. And so there is an element of luck. Your luck starts to go down the older you get, and they didn't get much younger, right? They signed Mike Evans, who's always been injury prone. They bring Debo back. He's older. I know they got Stribling that they drafted in the second round, but Kyle wants smart and tough and veteran players to be able to run the schemes that they have. And so for them, there is the element of luck of just trying to keep those guys healthy for a 17-game season plus the playoffs.
Are you a believer in the substation as the thing that's causing all this, or is it the age?
I only played there for a short time, but I never noticed it. But now I'm starting. I mean, it's got its own Instagram. It's got its own Twitter now. I mean, this thing has taken on a life of its own.
I was there for 3 years. I noticed it. I don't know if it's the reason why, but it's close.
Well, if it's got an Instagram and a Twitter, then it must be real. To Washington, this is good news. Jaden Daniels saw his first action of the preseason on Saturday against the Lions. The bad news, he got 3 snaps, went 0 for 1, was sacked once. All right, now, Brian, I got to go to Coach first here as our resident Jaden guy. He always talks about him as being the forgotten guy on this show because of me talking about Caleb and Wild's talking about Drake May. So, Coach, do you expect your guy, Jaden Daniels, to return to form?
Yeah, so Brian, the way it works is the rookie season doesn't count on this show. So all the things that Jaden Daniels did, that does not matter. And Caleb's rookie season, that doesn't matter either. It only matters what happened in the second season in terms of projecting it out. But the way that I feel about Jaden is he did accomplish all the things that he was able to accomplish, which was remarkable in his rookie season. Obviously, he got hurt last year and took a step back statistically. I would imagine that he has just as much ability as Drake May or Caleb to come out and have a big year, more experience, more poise, more connection with the guys around him. I think Stefon Diggs is a real plus for him. The struggle I have with Washington, just like we talked about with San Francisco, here's another old team. They've already lost Tunsil in the preseason. So that to me is going to be the limiting factor for Washington this season is same formula as San Francisco. Can they stay healthy?
Yeah, and I think with Jaden, the big thing is his health. I thought he had one of the best, if not the best, rookie season by a quarterback of all time. It was incredible. And it wasn't just running the football. I mean, I'll never forget, he threw a touchdown pass against the Bengals. They brought up weak safety blitz, and he hung in there and delivered a dime to McLaurin. And you're like, this is a legit guy. Now, the problem is the way he plays, he puts himself in harm's way. And so that's going to be the big thing. You got a new coordinator in David Blau, a guy who's played the position, who has a little bit of influence from Ben Johnson. So what's this offense going to look like? I'm happy that they signed Diggs. I think he's a good compliment to McLaurin. But to your point, it's an older team, and he doesn't have the same type of star players around him that Drake May has or Caleb has. So I do still think Jaden has a bright future ahead of him. He's got to learn to protect himself because as we talked about earlier, nothing more important than the health of the team. And if he's not out there playing, it really takes away the chances of them having a good season.
Yeah, Brian, I've said similar things like best rookie season of my lifetime. Like Justin Herbert set the rookie record for touchdown passes. That was a great one. Cam Newton's was a great one. Andrew Luck's, RG3. Like there've been some great. Dak Prescott won the 13 games. I wasn't as enamored with it because it felt very risk averse. And Jaden Daniels was so impressive because it was like his third down numbers were ridiculous. His fourth down passing numbers were ridiculous. They put so much on him, and you combined the statistical production with the deep run to the NFC Championship game. But I feel like I got to amend it. Like to your point, Coach, of not forgetting the rookie year, it is one of the great seasons in football history. Now, not one of the 5 greatest seasons, but if you put up these parameters on it, 30 or more touchdowns, 12 or more wins, 10 or fewer turnovers, or under 10, so 9 or fewer. It's happened 15 times. Now, Rodgers did it 4, Lamar did it twice, Brady did it 3, and then it's a group of Brett Favre, Patrick Mahomes, Drew Brees, and Jaden Daniels as a rookie. So it is a remarkably incredible season that he put on tape. The question is, to Brian's point, about health, style of play, if it's repeatable. You don't seem to have that concern, Coach.
Yeah, he didn't play much in the preseason. Obviously, he had the 3 plays and the 1 sack where he got sacked. They're having a tight end block a defensive end. That never works. It won't work. It won't work the whole season. So you might as well just throw that out, Washington. But when you hear about how he's been practicing and coming from the Miami coaches who they had the joint practice with, the things that they were saying about him with his accuracy, his poise, his ability to create plays, all of the things that you would like to be able to see in preseason games, especially coming off of an injury. It sounds like it's happening. We just haven't seen it happen in the game.
Yeah, I remember scouting him coming out of LSU, and I remember sitting there watching and be like, man, this guy kind of looks like Joe Burrow a little bit. And then he would take off and run, and I'm like, well, that looks like Lamar Jackson. So we just got to make sure that no one wears number 5 at LSU anymore, and we'll be good. But I was so impressed of him coming out of college. And then you come in as a rookie year. No one expects the Commanders to do anything. And he takes him to the NFC title game, and he was just so poised and so collected, and by his throwing and then obviously the running. And so I think the biggest thing for him is, how do I, in year 3, mature enough to know when to slide, when to get out of bounds, when to protect myself? Because when he's out there, if he's healthy, he's one of the best young quarterbacks in the game. There's no doubt about it.
Are you surprised though, Brian, that he hasn't put on more weight now being in the league? Like you would think, being in a pro weight program and the fact that that's been a bit of a concern, that he would have put more on his frame. And I know that's Nick's big issue with him. I thought we'd see a little bit bigger version of him coming into camp.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I mean, he looks so skinny, and I get it. He moves fast, but if you move fast and they eventually get you, I mean, there's some big men out there hitting you, and so that's part of the position. Look, as a quarterback, you're going to get hit enough as you hang in the pocket to throw the pass. Now you add that to designed runs, scrambles. You're out in the middle of the field. There's fast linebackers. I mean, you're going to take hits. And so whether you adjust your play style or then in the offseason train in a certain way that you put more mass on to be able to withstand those hits.
A combination of Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson sounds very scary and very dangerous.
And it was.
And it was. Also 2 players with a lot of injuries, though, on their track record. But we're going to get Brian Hoyer in on this, whether or not the Patriots are poised for a step back this year. Tough to take a step forward from the Super Bowl, but Mike Vrabel talking depth or lack thereof. So let's get back to New England, where Patriots head coach Mike Vrabel has chosen to sit Drake May and other key starters during the Pats' first 2 games of the preseason. Now, Brian, Vrabel went on with Greg Hill in Boston and said, that people were taking that as a shot at the GM. That's not what he meant. He's just like, I know who my starters are. I need to figure out, the third linebacker and what my tackle depth is going to be. And he wants more game tape to evaluate his depth is basically what his expansion was there. But what's your reaction to the candor from Mike Vrabel and the Patriots' depth?
Yeah, well, Mike's very forthright. It's just the way he is. It's the way he was, brought up as a player. Now as a coach, he's gonna say how he feels. And having been around New England a lot, they're right. They're trying to find, who's gonna be the swing tackle. You guys talked about Caleb Lomu earlier. They signed Greg Van Roten, a veteran guard, to bring in for depth on the line. Who's gonna be the 4th corner? Who's gonna be the 3rd safety? Now they've traded Kayshon Boutte and got Jalen Reed from Houston, so they add a little safety depth there. Who's gonna be the 4th linebacker? Is it Muma? So I think what he was saying along the lines is we need to see who these guys are going to be, and those guys who are out there need to play better. He was not happy with the way particularly the defense played the other night. I mean, he called a timeout like it was a basketball game because they were just getting pounded by the Eagles all the way down. And they asked him, he goes, I was just tired of watching bad defense. Like he wants to see those guys who can be the guys that have to step up, play better in the preseason.
So you're pretty close to this. You said you were doing sidelines, right?
Yeah, I was on the sideline.
Okay, so you're doing sidelines. You've been around the Patriots. You've been around Mike. So you could kind of translate it for me. But like if I took that quote, like don't think we have a very deep team, and applied it to how we normally talk about teams, like quality of depth, my thought is like 20 5 rosters would trade place with the Patriots. Maybe so by my definition of it, they do have a deep team. They just went through a whole draft class, and none of those guys are expected to start. They were in the Super Bowl last year, and their roster looks better on paper this year than last. They add A.J. Brown. They add Romeo Doubs. Do you think the Patriots are deep based on how the rest of us normally would talk about a team in that term?
Yeah, I think the top 30 on the roster is great depth. Now you're talking about the back end is a young players, new veterans that are coming in, learning the scheme. I mean, look, the Rams have probably the best roster. They don't have a lot of depth either. So I think what Mike's trying to use this statement is, hey guys, if you're trying to make this team and you're not on the top 30, you better wake up. You got a short period amount of time to make an impression to show us that you're worthy of being on this team, because as coach knows, there's going to be 1,100 transactions here in the next few weeks. I'm sure they're going to be looking for veteran players they feel like can come in and step into some of these roles. And so I took it more as a message to the players that are going to be out there playing and playing for jobs is, if you want to be on this team, you better step up.
Yeah, and I don't think that not having a draft pick starting is necessarily a badge of honor. You could look at it as wow, that's fantastic. They're so good that nobody can start. But you want your number 1 draft pick to be starting. You're looking for that player to give you 1,000 reps that first season. And I'd say the other things that's changed with preseason is, in addition to taking 1 preseason game away, so it's 3 instead of 4, there's so many of these joint practices where you can get what you want in terms of work with your starters in a controlled environment and really limit the susceptibility of injury, where you can now take the rest of the group who you have to figure out how they're going to operate in a game and give them more time in the preseason. So it's so different because the volume of these joint practices has exploded over the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and the Patriots had a joint practice with the Colts. They had 2 with the Eagles. I was there for both. I mean, the starters took the majority of those reps. So the Patriots offense had great work against that Philly defense and vice versa. So to your point, Coach, at a certain point, and I think Vrabel, having been a player and now a coach, he's like, what is it worth me putting my starters out there for 6 plays, right? Only bad can really come from that. Someone can get rolled up. He's gotten a lot of work, and these guys played a lot of football. I mean, they played all the way to the Super Bowl, so they had a longer season last year. So I would say, when it comes to the starters and the next maybe 10 players on the roster after those 22, they have a really good feeling about that. I think they're trying to figure out the depth of that back end of the roster. And like I said, he was not happy with some of the play, the effort on Saturday night when they played against the Eagles in the preseason game. And the guys that are going to play in this game on Thursday against the Browns, there's roles up for grab, and how you play will really determine if you're on this team or not.
You think they're going to be very good again?
I do. I mean, A.J. Brown has been absolutely incredible. And now you get to see how Josh McDaniels is working him into the system. I think we're so used to seeing A.J. on the outside. If you look at Josh's history, whether it's Randy Moss or Devontae Adams, he's going to move the number 1 guy around so teams can't key in on him. And what that does is open up for Romeo Doubs, for Pop Douglas, for Kyle Williams, the tight end group. I think one guy to keep an eye out for is Eli Raritan, the tight end out of Notre Dame. I was high on him coming out of the draft. There's been really good reports, and I've seen it with my own eyes, his understanding of the system, and we all know how New England likes to use tight ends. So I do believe that, and the defense, I think, will be a top 5 defense again.
All right, great stuff. Some good insight there from Brian Hoyer. Speaking of A.J. Brown, already win that trade? Quick addition, Coach, of winners and losers. We got some good ones on today's show. Predictions week is just around the corner. Can we get me a tie, please? And I mean, come on, I'm taking this seriously just like everyone else.
Can I get a neck?
Well, no, we just
okay?
no amount of technology.
Okay, I didn't know if that
we have for that type of transformation, Coach.
Look like I'm on The Sopranos there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what is this, the second to last episode of The Sopranos? It's the Jets coach, sweetheart. I should say hello. We're going to have a great predictions week 1 week from today. Let's get to winners and losers as we're wearing ties. Winner, Kyle Kirkwood. He wins the Freedom 250. It was just a great performance and a great spectacle, and a friend of the show. They drive really fast.
They drive really fast on a course that nobody's ever run on, and they have to be able to adjust to it in a day or two. They get like a little bit of a trial run, and then have to race at those speeds. It's amazing. It's amazing.
It is a crazy thing to experience and to watch. And took over for Pelot also, right? Pelot had been winning everything, gets out in front of him and holds him off to win the race. So congrats to Kyle Kirkwood. Next up, we'll put this one as weird. Yeah, Saints rookie Xavier Harris joins Dae'Quan Wright at LSU. That's right, since the show started, 2 NFL players have been like, you know what? I think Lane Kiffin might have something going at LSU.
I am going to be really interested at when the cuts come down here, how many of those kids that get cut suddenly go back to a massive amount of colleges, the guys with eligibility.
And I know this is in theory, a 1-year loophole as the 5-year eligibility rule was challenged in court. So some of these guys should come back and this should not really be a thing for the 2027 class. But anyone saying that they know what is going on in college football and what it's going to look like 6 months, a year, 6 years from now, they're lying to you. It just doesn't pass the smell test of logic that you could have guys in the G League or overseas go back and play college basketball, that you could have guys in the NFL go back and play college football. The NCAA should be the PCSA, Professional College Sports Association. It's professional sports. That's what it is. It is not college sports as we have always known to understand it. Next up, Odell Beckham Jr. This would be a loser. Father time. How about this? Looking, whoop, that's pretty good. It's a nice little juke. I didn't know OBJ, this angle will be better. I didn't know he still had that in him.
What quarter is this? Is this early in the game or is this late in the game? And this is
I didn't know there would be follow-up. I believe it was early in the game.
This is a little bit different than the highlights we're used to seeing from him.
Second quarter,
Okay.
6-minute mark. I mean, listen, it's preseason football and it's the Dolphins. They might be the worst team in the league, but still,
yeah,
a little bit of
time catches up with all of us.
Not yet. You looking pretty good out there. All right, next up, another loser, coach. We both have children.
Yes.
I don't know if you want to ever admit that you've lost or misplaced one of your children, but have you ever misplaced a child on the pitch? They had to stop a game because this baby got out onto the field to play.
Yeah.
What's going on? I mean, I know a baby, a sideline pass, I'm all for it. He seems like he's having a great time, just an adorable child, but safety first.
Super cute, and obviously he's a go-getter. You got to love his
interesting. You think maybe Duke security, mom got distracted.
I'm just saying that. If he got there on his own, you got to give him a ton of credit. Now he's going to be a handful as a teenager, but
yeah.
this little guy's got a future in something.
Pochettino's scouted him.
Yeah.
Also for the 2042 World Cup.
Love his enthusiasm.
Something like that. Final winner, A.J. Brown. Just got to hug it out. Seeing old friends, nice little reunion, him and Cooper DeJean, Devontae Smith getting together on the field. The vibes are really strong with A.J. Brown and some of the Eagles.
Yeah, who is he not hugging?
See, always looking glass half negative.
No,
half empty.
I'm just trying to see who he's not
I didn't see
hugging.
Jalen Hurts anywhere in the picture.
Okay.